Thank you, Dana. Cultural myths and attitudes contribute to an atmosphere where maltreatment of people with developmental disabilities is considered okay. Societal myths contribute to stereotyping, which often results in discrimination against people with developmental disabilities. Cultural attitudes can break down a person's learned inhibition of violent impulses and make it easier to abuse another person. This puts people with disabilities at greater risk for all types of violence, including abuse and neglect. Here are some of the negative misconceptions and stereotypes widely held in our culture about people with developmental disabilities. People with developmental disabilities are often thought of as wild and promiscuous, and that can lead to an overreaction of affectionate behavior and/or blocking normal physical contact with the child with disabilities. Innocent or asexual. Many people have a hard time believing that children with disabilities have any interest in sex. In fact, most children with disabilities develop normally in this regard. Incompetent or stupid. No matter what the child's disability, many people make the assumption that they have diminished intellectual abilities. There is also the assumption that the child with disabilities does not understand or feel. This can lead to behaviors such as talking about the person as if he or she were not there, or using baby talk in addressing the child with disabilities. Without boundaries leads to assumptions that children with disabilities are accustomed and don't mind intrusive personal questions, physical examinations, or psychological tests. To be pitied or put on a pedestal, and this attitude can lead to either feeling sorry for or exaggerating the accomplishments of a child with disabilities. Pity is behind exaggeration because it reveals low expectations of the child. Being punished by God. In some cultures, children with disabilities or their parents are believed to have been punished by God or somehow deserve to suffer. Disabilities are contagious. This leads to a fear of touching or being near children with disabilities. Avoidance leads to isolation of these individuals, resulting in more ignorance and lower self-esteem, thus increasing their vulnerability for maltreatment. Disabilities are shameful. Developmental disabilities are considered shameful and embarrassing. This attitude leads to avoidance of these persons, such as no eye contact, no greetings, confusion regarding what to say to the person, choosing not to include him or her in family gatherings or social outings. These misconceptions and stereotypes lead to the following specific attitudes and behaviors towards people with disabilities that can increase their risk of maltreatment. Social distancing or depersonalization. This is when people think victims of maltreatment with disabilities are not like me or one of us. People believe that they really don't know or understand what is happening to them anyway, so they don't suffer the way most people do. This leads to minimizing the impact of abuse and neglect on these children because he doesn't feel it anyway. Devaluation. This happens when children with disabilities are seen as having lower social worth or quality of life. Thus, violence is seen as more acceptable towards these persons because it's viewed as less harmful. Since the victims' lives are already ruined, their suffering is seen as less important. Blaming the victim. This is very common, even in the professional literature. For years, violence against children with disabilities was explained with the dependency stress hypothesis, such as the caregivers abuse their children with disabilities because these children make excessive and stressful demands on the caregiver. This theory has never been supported by research.